Thanks for coming. I'm Evan Baumgartner. I am a board-certified hypnotist, and I'm with LA Bay Hypnosis. I'm from Seattle, Washington. I'm going to be talking to you today about Bell's palsy and hypnosis and how we can help our clients do something that I didn't think we could do when I started doing this. So now, does everybody know exactly what Bell's palsy is, or Synkinesis? A lot of people especially don't know Synkinesis because like spell check on the phone won't even take that. Bell's palsy is facial paralysis. It is when the, I'm not a doctor, so I gotta check. The cranial nerve 7, which is kind of behind the face, it connects to 5 different points of facial nerve. It's a result of a dysfunction from that. So, and that causes facial paralysis. It occurs in 1 to 4 per 10,000 people. So 1.5% of all people will get that. It can happen at any age, any time, and there isn't really a known cause of it. There's certain ones, but they can't predict what's going to happen. For me, it was stress. This happened 9 years ago in December when I had Bell's palsy. And I was under a lot of stress at the time. And I was a freelance writer, holidays were coming up, cranking out deadlines, and I'm just hunched over my computer, and I just had this weird headache for a couple days, this pain in my neck. And I'm like, yeah, it's all that work I gotta do. And dealing with the stress of the holidays. And then all of a sudden it stopped. Great, got a bunch of work done. That evening, everything froze up. And now at the time, there was no link to stress and Bell's palsy. So they're like, no, it's something else, something happened to that nerve. We don't know what, but you know, it's that nerve. That's what happened. And I'm like, well, I think it's stress. I'm like, well, you can't do that. And it makes sense because how can you prove stress in a lab? is doing that, especially with the percentage of people that happens to. And as I was looking into Bell's palsy and talking to people that experienced it, one of the most common things I noticed was like, it happened a lot of times in cases with pregnancy. People that were pregnant would have Bell's palsy in giving birth. Bell's palsy would happen. And I'm like, that's a link to stress right there, and fatigue. Like when you think about it, everybody seems to have this universal experience of being under a lot of some kind of stress. And like with being pregnant, that's a lot of physical stress, and it's definitely a lot of emotional stress as you're bringing a life into the world. And same way with when I was working, I'm like, well, I've got a lot of work to do. I was physically uncomfortable. I was burning the candle at both ends, so I was fatigued. And then boom, it happens. So in 2019, September, October, somewhere in there, shortly before the pandemic happened, Harvard Medical had a study where they discovered the link between stress and Bell's palsy. And I'm like, I'm vindicated. It's what I've been saying the whole time, that there was definitely a link there. And the great thing about that is that's one way that we can help people with hypnosis, because obviously hypnosis is great for stress reduction, and that can help prevent any recurring cases, because there are people out there that have had Bell's palsy multiple times. And normally, it lasts for 1 to 2 weeks, maybe 3, and then everything kind of goes back to the way it was, and you're fine. In a very, very small percent of cases, about 9%, they'll develop some kind of ongoing problem, such as synkinesis. And that's what happened to me. I think of it as, has everybody seen The Goonies? All right, so in The Goonies, they have a little statue replica of David, and they break it, and they glue it back together wrong, which the kids point out, wait, that's mom's favorite piece. She's gonna notice that.
And that's what happens with synkinesis. So it heals, but it thinks it's doing the right thing, but everything is not in exactly the right place. And this has created other issues for me, things that they didn't tell you about. The doctor, where it's like that muscle pulling has started pulling my jaw slowly. So after a few years, I go to the dentist, and my regular dentist goes like, "Did you somehow break your jaw, before, in between cleanings?" And I'm like, "No, why?" It's like, well, it's out of alignment now, where it slowly started moving, and that had caused me to start grinding my teeth, which I'd never done before. So thankfully, self-hypnosis, reducing stress, stopped that. And that's another way. But for me, and I think something that gets overlooked a lot with it is it's not simply a cosmetic thing. And this is how doctors tend to look at it. And it is because, we look different. It affects us differently. But there's more to it than that. So for me, the anxiety it created wasn't just because of how I looked, but it affected my ability to communicate with people. And not just, having more trouble speaking or pronouncing words correctly because of only half of my mouth moving fully, but because it's the way we non-verbally communicate too. It's such a large part of how we talk. And now I couldn't emote the same way I did. I couldn't make the same things. I don't like my daughter. We always do something where it's like I'd be joking around, be like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna do this," and she'd go, "Oh, okay," wink, wink. Yeah, and now I would be serious about something. "Oh yeah, we gotta grab this and get going out the door so we're not late. We're gonna do all these things." And then with the muscle there, my eye would kind of twitch and do that wink, and she'd go, "Oh, okay, Dad," wink, wink, back in. Like, no, I'm being serious. Twitch again, wink, wink, damn it, no. So it's fun. But it does make things kind of difficult outside of Popeye cosplay when you're trying to non-verbally communicate, especially if you're like me and you're very deadpan and you like deadpan humor and you can't make the right sort of face to communicate a joke, then it's kind of, all right, maybe I should find another way to make jokes, but I'm not gonna do that. I think it'd just be easier if I found a way to fix it. And one of the other things that doesn't really come up is it affects hearing as well. For me, there was a hypersensitivity to hearing that lasted for like 4 to 6 months, and this came later, not initially. And I remember I was at a soccer game. A friend of mine, his girlfriend, and her parents were in town visiting, and they just happened to be neurologists, so it was, good that they were there. We go into this bar, and everything is so echoey. All of a sudden, I'm dizzy. Falling out of the chair, I'm like, because the way the sound was bouncing, it was just magnified in one ear. And a lot of people with Bell's palsy report, dealing with tinnitus, and that's something that we can also use hypnosis to help them with and open that up. But for me, and what I specialize in, is helping people get their anxiety down, away, eliminating that battle, getting their confidence back so they can be themselves again. When it happened to me, I didn't take things well, to put it lightly. I became agoraphobic. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to deal with shit. And it wasn't about what other people thought. It was about what a pain in the ass it was for me. And that was the thing. Like, I don't care what other people think. I don't care what I think. And I mean, I could just go out and order soup and just make everybody else uncomfortable, and that'd be fun. But I wasn't gonna do that. And I just got so tired of people going, oh, you can't even notice. And it's like, really? Okay, you're kidding. Let's just be honest here. So why would I wanna go out and do that? And then one time I went to a bar for happy hour. I'm like, okay, I'm going to live my life as normal. And I go and I walk in, the bartender looks at me like, should I be serving this guy? How many does he have? You have a stroke, and you can be serving him. I'm just like, I'm not, no, that's it, I'm done. I've had a good ride, staying home. And yeah, I was a writer at the time, so that was easy. But then it became harder and harder to go back out. And that's what brought me to hypnosis. That was the one way I could get my anxiety under control and get my life back. Because I'm like, this isn't who the fuck I am. I would go out, I would do whatever. I traveled the world. I would just pick up and move across the country when I was 18 for school. Things like that. And nothing stopped me. I'd just go do things by myself. A lot of you have probably seen pictures I've been posting, like coming here, going to Hoover Dam in 113-degree weather. Why? Because I've always wanted to go to Hoover Dam. And I'm not going to let 113 degrees stop me when it's right there. So I couldn't not be that person because that's who I am. And doctors weren't a help. And so I tried hypnosis. And I got my anxiety down. And that's what led me to becoming a hypnotist. Because I figured if I can do this and just help one person not have to go through the shit I went through, so nobody has to fucking feel that way, great. I'm doing something worthwhile. And now I heard about Milton Erickson using hypnosis to beat polio. I'm like, well, if he can do that, there must be a way I can reverse this, put everything back to where it was. Fix mom's favorite piece. And, oh man.
It's a good one.
Yeah, it is good. But how was I gonna do that? I focused on the emotional, not so much the physical. And it was here at Hypnothoughts last year where working with Kinetic Shift that I'm like, which I use for emotional stuff, but then I'm like, you know, if you guys were at Hypnothoughts at the Orleans, you know the conference rooms got a little chilly, especially in the pre and post conference. And when that happened, the muscle, you know, our muscles contract to make us shiver, to warm us up. So this side was going really contracting hard. This side was overcompensating, opening up wider to balance things out. And it was really uncomfortable, and I'm like, all right, and now I'm looking like I'm asleep half the time, or that's not good. And then with Kinetic Shift, I'm like, oh, it loosened it up. And I'm like, wait a minute. Oh, this works with physical stuff too. It's not just the emotional things. This is my way in. I can figure this out. And so I started working with that in January. I'm like, okay, how do I want to go about this? And then with a combination of self-hypnosis, Kinetic Shift on myself, and then releasing emotions, because I had to identify into it, and that's what the emotional scale there, in order to let things go. Because I was still down wanting to fix it instead of accepting it and then letting it go. And it's because I didn't want to just be the Bell's palsy guy. But that's part of my story. That's why I'm standing right here. So I've never shied away from saying that. So why in my head was I like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm like, but you want to help people. I'm like, but could I get a result for them? I'm like, well, I know I can make them feel better emotionally. I know I can help them with their confidence. I know I can help them with their anxiety. What can I do physically? And that's what a lot of people want. And then it happened. So, but it was as soon as I let go, as soon as I dealt with that kind of that emotional weight and released it on top of other techniques, which everybody knows, ideomotor responses, self-hypnosis, big help. Kinetic shift, I absolutely love it. I'm doing a training on that in August, and that physically works great for it. Can do visualizations. I didn't have much success with that, but I still do. But just doing a little bit of self-hypnosis and everything, from that, when I seriously started it in December, within a week, I was able to whistle again for the first time in 8 years. And that was something that just absolutely blew my mind. It still makes me emotional thinking about it, because this was something I didn't think that was ever gonna happen. And it did, but I had to get to that point where I didn't give a fuck if it did. And not just like give a fuck in the apathetic way, but in the very top, in the peace way, where I can be just as happy with whether or not this changes at all. And once I let that go, everything else with the hypnosis started working that much more. And I operate on the 1% rule, where compounding interest is going to take over. It just takes me a couple minutes a day doing self-hypnosis, and this is something we can do with all our clients. We can teach them self-hypnosis, work with ideomotor responses, and they can start getting changes. And just a little more symmetry each and every day. And then it flies up. And I've been posting pictures on Facebook. I kind of slacked off the last couple months, been a little busy, but like, here's my progress with it. And I've had people say like, wow, that's like 50% better in 6 months than it was before I started doing that. So this is huge for our clients. And this is something that not a lot of people know about, but it's that power. So thank you all for coming, and I really appreciate it. And I have the handouts. You guys fill those out, give those back to me, and I'll send you a recording of a guided release that's good for all emotional issues. And so thanks a lot.